Yeah, good morning. My name's Ed Kalani, and I'm chairman of Citizens for Educational Excellence and Accountable Taxation. Thank you. With me today is Bev Sprague, who's our treasurer, and Dave Johnson, who is a concerned citizen and running for county supervisor. We're here this morning to inform the public about this school infrastructure local options tax. We're going to ask you to vote no for this tax. Our organization stands for excellence in children's education, growth and prosperity in our community, and accountability in taxation. We're saying that the school local options tax is wrong for Jefferson County and wrong for business. And Bev has a few points to make in that regard.
Good morning. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the sequence of events from my perspective as I have been watching over the last few months regarding the silo election, and also the budgetary information that we have had access to. First of all, it appears that the silo election proposal went on the schedule for vote prior to a substantive budget being presented. We called the county superintendent's, the superintendent of schools office, and asked for budgetary information. What we received instead of a packet of budgetary information is the little brochure which was sent out to introduce to the county residents what silo tax is all about, and a few references to things that they would like to have in their school system. So upon pursuit, we tried to get some budgetary information, and we were presented with something which I'll speak a little bit more in length in a minute about, what I would call a wish list with some guesstimates on it for what these items would cost. But the sequence of events in this voting process is that it went onto the schedule for vote prior to the budget and before the community has even been educated about the vote. I have spoken with many, many people over the last few weeks, and yesterday, August 25th, was the first time that I ran into one person that even knew there was a vote coming up. And so we're very concerned. We want people to know that the vote is coming up so that they can educate themselves and decide in a realistic and educated manner whether or not they want increased taxes in the county.
Now, I just want to interrupt for a second, just so the people watching this show know, the school infrastructure tax is a proposed increase of our county sales tax from 6 to 7%. That's a 16% increase in taxes. Right now, 62% of our state budget goes to education. 36% of our Fairfield property tax goes to education. Over 50% of rural Fairfield School District goes to education. So basically, they're asking, it would cost the taxpayers $1.4 million each year, $14 million over 10 years. This is a 10-year options tax. And not all the money stays in Jefferson County. Some of it goes all over the state, some of it goes to surrounding counties, and the school district would be getting $1.194 million in taxes, and that's an increase in their budget of 325%. Okay, go ahead, Bev.
Thank you for those facts. You put it together much more succinctly than I was going to do.
You're welcome.
The process that is concerning me is that the public really is not aware of the percentages of these increases. And the fact that accountability does not necessarily come from showing rusty lockers and so forth. Accountability that we're looking for in a business sense is a budget. And when asked for a budget, we received 2 sheets of paper which listed what they'd like to see in each school, which are perfectly valid desires. The monies that were listed next to those desires were guesstimates. As a matter of fact, in the brochure that we received, they said, you know, they were really sorry, but they didn't have time to bid out these projects because the vote was coming up. And that's one of my concerns. Why put it on the ballot until you have all the information of the monies that you might need for some of these projects. The other thing is that in the real world, in the business world, I should say, if you present a budget, the budgets usually involve things like income, expenditures, maybe a prioritization of your needs, and an accountability, even an annotation of why these needs are important. Did the fire marshal mention that you needed to change this? So when we're looking at accountability for increasing taxes, we need to know specifically how has the money been spent to date? Are there other avenues that we could pursue to raise money for these projects? And is this actually the amount of money they would need to take care of the most important items in the school district? So we're just asking people to back up a little bit, consider this in terms of the voting for Tuesday, August 31st, and say, wait a minute, let's take a closer look at this and see if we can't be better educated in our voting.
Also, another concern, thank you, Bev, another concern that we want to emphasize is that, if you can focus in on this chart, is that the student enrollment has been dropping the last 4 or 5 years. Right now, this last year it was 2,077 students. The expected enrollment 10 years from now is about 1,800 students. Also, as you can see from the chart, this is a chart of student enrollment against expenditures that the Fairfield School District has made in the last, I believe, 5 years. And almost every year, expenditures have been going up. So we're wondering, along with accountability, we really would like to know why is expenditures going up like this when student enrollment is going down? What's the most valuable use of our taxpayer dollars? Another point is, this election is a special election that costs Jefferson County voters approximately $3,000 to just put this as a special ballot issue as opposed to the general election, when more people would actually vote and you'd actually get a better idea of what the Jefferson County voters would like to have.
And may I add one more thing? I'm also concerned, I would like to just put it out in the ether here to remind people that the school district is not the only organization, government, utility, and so forth in line for wanting a percentage of our personal earned income. When we look at our personal earned income, we're looking at how we're going to pay for groceries, our mortgages, if we're lucky enough to have one, our utilities, our children's college educations, our health bills, and so forth. So the school district's desires are just one in a plethora of people looking for our personal income. So we need to take that into consideration also and put it in perspective.
Now, before we turn the show over to Dave, I wanted to make one last point. Some of the arguments that the people in favor of this tax have been making is that it reduces property tax. And I took a look at that. And basically, right now, they're saying that they would recommend that they would reduce the PEBL, which is a physical plant and equipment levy tax, which is $430,000 a year currently, which we just voted in last fall. And I looked at that. First of all, we have no guarantees. When you write a contract, when you do business, you put that in writing, and we do not have that. We do not have on the ballot replace the PEBL with the silo tax. So there's no guarantees. Two, I looked at, what is the real reduction in property taxes that one could account for? And basically, it's next year, if they follow through, it'll be about a $200,000 reduction in property tax, maybe a little bit more than that. And then the following year, we don't even know what the assessed values are for this county, so we can't even really make a determination. And quite frankly, if you look at this chart, which is a chart of property tax levies in our county for the last 4 or 5 years, you can see the top line there is the tax levies that have been placed on Jefferson County citizens, on people who own property, and it's been increasing every year. And with that trend, it's really questionable whether in 2 years, when they say the whole property tax, physical plant and equipment levy will be relieved, if there will really be any overall property tax reduction for property owners here in Jefferson County.
And Ed, isn't there going to be an overlap of paying those two taxes?
Right, and
sometime?
for a year and a half, if this tax would pass, it would go in effect in January, and we'd be having both our property tax and the sales tax, so they'd be double dipping. And then for the 2005-2006 school year, they would reduce 67 cents per $1,000 assessed valuation. And then the following year, they would remove the remaining 33 cents, which incidentally, the school board could vote back at any time. And we have school board elections every year, so we don't know what the future school board members will want to do. Nor do we know what the economy will bring, and so it's questionable whether we'll really get property tax relief.
Yeah.
So with that, Dave.
I think this is the longest I've ever been quiet. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that none of us on our committee, and none of us in our community are against the education of our students. We just feel that the Pebble levy is the right way to do. It gives them $4.2 million over 10 years, and we think if they set some real priorities, if they prioritize what they have to do, that they can get done what they need to get done. Maybe not all that they want to get done, but I think that they can get what they need to get done. But the problem I have with increasing our sales tax or with the silo tax is that it's inflationary. It's going to make make the goods and services that we buy in this community cost more money. Right now, we got a situation with Alliant Energy. I don't think they have any justification, but point blank, our utility bills are going up. That's really going to cut down on the real income that people in our community have to spend. And all this does is pile onto that. Two, that it's a regressive tax, which means it affects poor people in a much more vast way. It's going to keep, something that helps the school system but hurts the family budget and cuts back on the hard-working families that we have in our community that are trying to send our kids to school. I just don't think that that's a good trade-off. Third, that this is one of the most inefficient taxes that I've ever seen, sending millions of dollars out of the community to other counties. We're going to tax $14 million, and we're going to be lucky to receive $12 million in benefit. And it also is stacked with a diminishing return because, according to the school board's estimates, that we're going to have lower, the trend in tuition is going to be lower and lower and lower and lower. And as we have less students, we participate less and less in the amount of money that we receive. This is I'm worried about business. I'm worried about jobs in this community. We've got 3 factories that are closed down: Meritor, Malibu, Loudon's recently closing. The problem the schools are having, the problem that everyone is having, every person, every business entity, is the fact that our economy is suffering right now. And the only long-term fix is to improve our economy. Another thing that bothers me about this is we recently just closed Lockridge's schools. How would you feel? So they have less buildings to take care of, less students in the community, but the costs just keep going up and up and up and up. Recently, the superintendent of Cardinal School, I believe his name was Arnie Snook, is that right?
Yes.
Came and discussed him, and he went on and on and on for nearly an hour about the school budget, the school budget, the school budget. Well, I turned the tables on him, and I asked him, well, what about the family budget? What about seniors on fixed income? That are really struggling to make ends meet? How do you propose that they deal with their budget problems? And he said the same way the schools do. So, I asked him, by sticking it to the taxpayer? Ed mentioned that they're double dipping on property tax and this levy. I submit to you that they're double dipping on sales tax. They already get 62% of our sales tax. Somewhere along the line, enough has to be enough.
So we're going to close now, and we want to emphasize one more time, we're asking you to vote no August 31st, countywide election for the school infrastructure local options tax. And if you can't make it August 31st, you can go to the courthouse any day during their normal business hours and vote at the county auditor's office. So we very much appreciate your time, and we're asking you to vote no to the silo tax.
I'd like to make one more point here. In business, what's good for business, I see as a competitive edge. Everybody needs some kind of an edge. If our sales tax stays at 6, and everybody else around us goes to 7, possibly we'll get some sales coming into our county that we don't get. The school's going to argue that, well, every time you go to Ottumwa or Burlington, you're paying, you're contributing to those school income tax. But those communities don't have growth. I'd like to point to Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, whose sales tax is at 5%, and they have growth. And they're actually, significant growth in job creation. We have, the school says that you can't attract any business unless you fully fund your schools. Well, part of their problem is the state has reduced their revenues. But if the local community wants to jump in and make up the difference every time the state legislature cuts the budget, that's the wrong message to the state budget, because they'll just keep passing it on and passing on the cost to us, and that's not a tax reduction, that's passing the buck. We have a commitment to the youth of our community. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, along with the diplomas that they get from when they graduate, that we should just hand them a bus ticket to go somewhere where they have jobs. There should be, the commitment to our youth shouldn't end after they graduate from high school. There should be a job in our community waiting for them when they get done.
The truth is, lower taxes provide the incentive for economic growth, and when you have economic growth, you have prosperity, and then the school system will get what they need and everybody else will. So I think increasing taxes is not the right way to go. Look at Fairfield Lumber, for instance. There's enough competition with the Menards of the world, and to have a 2% differential on big ticket items, people are going to shop where it's cheaper. They're going to shop in Iowa City where it's 5% tax. Same with a lot of other businesses here. So that's another reason to vote no. And so we thank you for your time and wish you the very best.